So, Poorani, I would like to start off by having you introduce yourself to our listeners.
Hi, Dr. Ramesh. Thank you for having me here. First, I want to congratulate you on completing your first year milestone. And, I've really enjoyed listening to your various podcasts and the speakers and insights. And I'm very honored to be part of your series.
Poorani, you were also instrumental in having me take on do this podcast series. So, thank you for encouraging me.
I'm glad it turned out, and it's kept going. I'm really happy to be here. And a quick introduction of myself. I'm the principal consultant with Talent Leadership Crucible, a company that you founded almost 10 years ago. And the focus of the work on corporate culture change is something that fits and dovetails very closely with my passion and purpose. And so I've really enjoyed working on the various projects and initiatives that we've had around family business and transformation change work. I see myself really playing the role of a facilitator, a coach, change agent, co creator in that work of culture change.
And more recently, Poorani, you became involved also with a new organization that we brought into existence called Impact Velocity. And can you share with the listeners what Impact Velocity does?
Yeah, so impact velocity is created to fulfill on the intention of creating a million impact projects. Oh my goodness, how are you going to do that? So, what impact velocity is really up to is equipping as many people as possible, whether they be in families or communities or organizations, with what we call a systems awareness or sustainability success mindset that allows them to then really be self motivated to take on different, however big or small, impact projects. And so that's really the intention of Impact Velocity. And I'm one of the transgenerational council members there and known as one of the impacteers, as we call people who are participating in Impact Velocity's vision.
It's really great that you're here as one of the Transgenerational Legacy Council members because I wanted to ask you what was the origin of this entire mission around 3Ps?
Three P's is people development, planet renewal, and prosperity sharing, or another way to say it is progress sharing. That three P's actually show up when people get awareness of themselves as a system. Impact velocity is really the expression of a family business's legacy. This really goes back to our work with the Nguyen family when we first started working with that. After various conversations, aligning family members and resolving certain internal conflicts, and the founders were giving the next generation, the three sons, the opportunity to take on the future of the family and the business. The next generation, the three brothers, really saw for themselves the possibility of a transgenerational legacy in terms of these three P's, right? So for them, their legacy was not just, it was not about wealth preservation or wealth generation. It's how their wealth would be providing and supporting and fulfilling on the three P's.
So that's very interesting because they looked at the 3Ps of people development, planet renewal, and prosperity sharing as part of their transgenerational legacy. What had them even come to that position because they were not in that kind of a business?
So one of the work that we did as facilitators and consultants with the family was to have them explore what we call various scenarios, from connecting them to the purpose of their life and then starting to see possible futures and scenarios. They saw there were two key indicators of one was the side of sustainable societies and the other was the side of human potential. So there was a scenario of high human potential and low sustainable society. There was one which high sustainable society and low human potential. And then there was one with high human potential and high sustainable society. As they went through that creation process of looking at what future, what kinds of future are available in these different scenarios, it was a no brainer for them to invest themselves in the scenario, in the future of strong sustainable societies and high human potential. And so inside of that scenario, the three Ps showed up as, the three pillars or the foundations, or the indicators that they are on track to fulfilling that future.
Wow. That's really inspiring. And so Impact Velocity then became the vehicle for them to roll out this vision.
There's nothing here that is personal to the Nguyen family. It is shared with everyone and whoever hears that and wants to participate. So it really is designed and meant to be a shared vision.
It started off with them actually cascading it down within the company to their 2,500 employees, I presume.
From a corporate perspective, there will be different indicators, but yes, they did take the three Ps down and we worked with them on how that shows up in an organizational setting. And then, so with impact velocity, we are looking at how that's going to show up in a societal setting.
In this podcast series, I spent some time with our guest speakers to explore entrepreneurial mindset versus being an entrepreneur. A lot of people want to be entrepreneurs, but obviously, then you have to have an idea and you've got to go and start a business and run it to execute on that idea. But I personally feel that in this age of disruption, what is more critical is that we develop an entrepreneurial mindset, because then we can be resourceful, because there will be always problems and we are able to identify what's the right problem and then look for the solutions to work on those problems. Number two is that at the same time, there will be risk and there will be uncertainty, and we become really great at being able to manage that uncertainty for ourselves. And lastly, of course, there's a need to create value. And we're not just creating value for ourselves, but we are also creating value for our stakeholders and the people around us. So when you take on this definition of an entrepreneurial mindset, what can you see about an entrepreneurial mindset and being an entrepreneur?
One thing for sure for myself, I'm someone who's resourceful, meaning that I actually thrive in having limitations. If you just gave me a free flow or a blank canvas, sometimes that's actually difficult. But if there are limitations, then I have to be, and I am called upon to being resourceful. One of my biggest victories at one point was to create a big mega project of 2,000 people attending an event in 6 months, where typically this company used to take 3 months to fill a class for 200 people. So that was a huge, huge challenge. And there were limitations, right? But I saw that, with those limitations, actually, I was pushed to being resourceful. Even taking risks becomes something that you have to push some boundaries. So within that, and definitely creating value, of course, is what kept me going in challenging myself and those around me. So, yeah, I can see those three factors are critical in and being part of that, as what you said, the entrepreneurial mindset. So, you might call me entrepreneurial or not. I've never seen it as something that I do. But I guess if you say, well, have you started a business of your own or wanted to start your own business? I would say no, that's not been of any particular calling. I do remember when I first graduated, I did start a sole proprietorship. But to me, I didn't look like I started a business. I just did that because I had to do that to do a project. So incorporating a business was something that I did so that I could undertake a project. Definitely, I do see myself as entrepreneurial.
That was the example that you talked about, working for other corporates. And when you get stuck with, you've got a problem solved, and that's when this mindset is actually really useful.
Yeah, it was a successful project, and I won an award in the global level for the entrepreneur of the year or entrepreneur. That was the first time they had such an award, but they had to make up that award because of that project. So that's clearly for me an opportunity for people inside of the corporate, right? That they do show up with the entrepreneurial mindset and do contribute to the success and the intentions of the company.
Now, for the listeners, of course, Poorani is my sister, and we've been working together for 30 years. But this is the first time I'm hearing that she got this award. Poorani, you never told me about this before.
That was like a year where many things happened. So maybe I was focusing on something else. I don't know. But yeah, I did get an award. I feel that I can fulfill that inside an organization. So I guess there's never been for me to find my own business, right? And then, of course, working with you, we're constantly, exploring different things.
I just wanted to also underline a key point that you have raised, because in my anecdotal experience of having trained about 2,000 people in how to start and run a business in early 2000, One third of the class will say and would have actually completed their business plan and they want to go and become a business person immediately. One third of the class will say no, never. And one third of the class will say, yes, maybe I can be entrepreneurial at the workplace, but this is not the right time. And I guess that's the point because, if you want to go and start a business and run it, you've got to have a different set of motivation and you've also got to have a different set of skill sets. And it doesn't detract you or diminish you if you're not doing that. In fact, you can actually be very successful in life just applying an entrepreneurial mindset. I define crisis as a setback. And usually, in a crisis, if we don't take the action, we'll come to a turning point. And at that turning point, we either face death or the ability to move forward. I'm sure you've had faced many directly or indirectly. And what can you share from your own personal experience with our listeners?
There are many, many crises that I've dealt with. I remember there was one crisis when I thought I'm going to quit a training program I started in the US, which I was supposed to commit to doing for the rest of my life. That particular crisis was that saying that I don't think I'm good enough to participate in this program because everybody around me, my cohort, was so much more experienced and so much more proficient. And so the first awareness is, of course, to know that you're in a crisis. And the second is, I think for me at least, that you have a sounding board, whether it's a mentor or a coach, right? So I was fortunate that I could reach out to a mentor and have a conversation to express what I was dealing with. So and then the second thing is then being open enough at that moment to listen to whatever the mentor is say and have that actually kind of give you a moment or a space of reflection, and then just getting back into the game of whatever you are up to or play. I have had to go through crisis that, like in this case, maybe after one day I was done, I was over it. But I've gone through a relationship crisis which lasted at least 2 years, and so for me to be complete with that relationship took me 2 years. That's a crisis too, in some sense. So I don't think there is a timeline, right? But I think the key takeaway would be we all get over it, right? With enough time, with enough space. And it is always whether you have the support structure, whether you have the internal and the external structures, right, that support you to see another day. I work in a field where that's what I'm telling others to do. So I guess to some extent, that has been something that I then take on for myself. And just acknowledging that you are in a crisis or in a space of what we call, which is not your intended self or not your self in that moment, that is already the beginning of the journey out of the crisis.
Thank you so much for actually highlighting the first piece because it's probably the hardest for most of us in any crisis.
That awareness is critical, yes, but like we all know, awareness without action is not going to create transformation or the change. It's an action that is consistent with whatever that's showing up there to be done. There is no preset action that I can tell you we can all learn. The action that we're going to take, that has to be based on whatever the situation is. Maybe that's the next level of courage or clarity that's required. Because if we are then muddled or preset in our notions of the actions I can and cannot take, then puts us back in a crisis, I guess.
That's true. And you've called out something really important because in my book, I talk about these 4 steps. And awareness is that piece about recognizing the crisis, and acceptance is where we recognize and acknowledge that we had a role in it, whether, by participating or not participating. But the third piece, right, which is really the confidence to take actions, knowing that we have failed in the past that led to that crisis is really the tough one. And sometimes, even if you know the actions, because we lack the confidence, it becomes difficult to take those actions. And to find the courage to move ahead is important. And of course, as we start to take the actions, then what we see at that point is that self actualization, the fourth, a new reality emerging because now we have sort of turned around that corner, right? And we are starting to create that new future. So I call this the 4 step process to developing a crisis ready mindset. Where are you in your spiritual journey and what's spirituality for you in your life?
I really don't talk about spirituality much these days because to me, I don't know. I guess it's become one of those things that I have nothing to say about it, even as a conversation most times. I think only because I spent so much of my youth and from a very young age, I think I was very interested in spirituality. So, as a big point of focus, right? And I saw spirituality through meditation, through yoga, through a guru, to traveling to, places, particular places of spiritual significance. So, I've spent, I think, a good part of my life doing that. And so, right now, it's kind of, I guess, in the background for me. So, to even articulate spirituality, I think I would right now even say I am not pursuing spirituality. I mean, to me, that would look like that, right? Because it's so much in the background of how I see it. And I think I see spirituality more now in the work that I do, which is, fulfilling my purpose in being connected to or aware of my contribution or how my contribution and others' contribution.
So, in some sense, your journey of spirituality moved from it being that individual exploration to one of, being connected with the collective and expressing that in the actions and the interactions that you are having with the larger community.
So I think that would be connected to the bigger purpose. There's a quote by Swami Vivekananda that I remember from 30 years ago. The purpose of life is living a life of purpose. Right. So simple, but that's what it is.
Do you think it's possible to live a simple life? And what would you define, as a simple life for yourself?
From this conversation on spirituality and what I said about purpose. And I think a simple life is just living a life that is here and now. Maybe my circumstances have been fortunate. I don't see myself having some of the commitments of family or finance that perhaps others might feel stop them from living a simple life or pursuing certain things. I can just pursue what is there in front of me. For me, is living a simple life.
So that's interesting because often I find that in the roles that I play, yes, there is complexity, but also in the life that we lead, there is an expectation of certain things that we have to do or not to do. And like some of our guests have said, that invariably that will put us in a position where we either get compared or we have to compare. And that makes life again complex. But all this is external. And I guess what you are talking about is really the internal expression of what is a simple life. If you're here and now and doing what is right in front of you, then nothing is complex because all you're doing is just focusing on that.
Simple life is not about whether it's the osteo life, it's the frame of mind, right? Can you keep it simple and uncluttered? So that will be the simple life, however complicated or complex the situation may be.
The state of thriving, what is it for you? But that's the opposite.
In my experience, I only get access to thriving when I know I'm surviving. The example we use, right? Only if you know you are sitting down, you can stand up. If you don't know where you are, you can't move to where you want to go or what you can. You don't have a choice about the next state. For me, I'm very familiar and very clear about my surviving space. When I am clear about that, then I have a choice about is this what I want to pursue, continue, or do I have an alternative? So thriving effective is effective in my true purpose or my true intentions, meaning that the sense of that there's nothing more, there's no regrets, there's no resentments, there's nothing. It goes back to that simple life, being here and now and being able to give fully to what's in front of you.
In 2013, you had gone and done a couple of modules at the UN University in Tokyo, looking at sustainability, and then you did a master's in tri-sector collaboration. What's your definition of sustainability? We use the definition of the ongoing thriving of a living system.
In 2013, I decided that I'm going to start a new page in my future on a direction in how I'm contributing and where I want to contribute. So I was looking at what was going on around me. And I actually was planning to go back to Sri Lanka. I was born there. And so I thought, civil war was supposedly over, but still lots of problems there. Maybe I could do something there. And then I was told that maybe that's not the first step. There's something else to be done first. That's my family saying that to me. So then I looked around and suddenly this thing for United Nations short courses came up. And so I went there, United Nations University in Tokyo, and I spent almost 2 months there. And I actually did their pioneering program on leadership and sustainability. They had just launched it, just that time when I landed there. So I took it on, I did it. And so actually it opened up a whole world around sustainability, which I was aghast to say that up to that point, I had not paid attention to sustainability. Suddenly I said, oh, wow, there's this whole crisis, which really had I've been talking about transformation and looking at people living a good life and their best life for the last 10 years prior. And sustainability or the planet was never in that conversation, or rarely. In fact, I don't think I heard anyone actually speak of it. It was a whole new world that opened up. And at the same time, I also saw, based on what I know about people and human being and what how people struggle to produce results, that there was something here to actually bring together. Sustainability is not just about the planet, it's not just about helping poor people or the underdeveloped. So there was a bigger part of sustainability that I started to see, and that is what we call about systems awareness, right? And when I started to explore the way of system awareness, we start to see that actually the biggest system that all of us are inside of is life itself. And so when you put that in there, and I look at an individual, so we use the term sustainable success instead of sustainability, because success is being effective and sustainability is life. So ultimately, it's about how we can have effective lives or be effective in life. So that's the journey from sustainability and pulling together all the work on personal and organizational transformation, that I started to see that there was a new way to engage people in their lives and with the planet and with our future.
When we talk about sustainability as the ongoing thriving of a living system, you're actually looking at the system at multiple levels, from all the way from at the individual level all the way to the collective level.
Yeah. So because ultimately the individual is the system. When we say system awareness, if you had system awareness of yourself, then you don't see yourself as an individual, as a separate. You always recognize yourself as the whole. We use the one of the definitions by Alan Atkinson, where he says that the sustainability is the ability of a system to continue working and evolving over the long term. So that's really what it is. So if you look at human system or living systems, that biggest system we are all referring to is life itself. And that includes you, me, the planet, the future, everything is that system.
Of course, a lot of people look at the aspect of the ESG sustainability, which is environment and the climate crisis. But what we are also hearing from a lot of people is that whole aspect of us as an individual and how we think around sustainability. And thank you for sharing why that is an important piece.
Definitely, Dr. Ramesh, thank you so much for having me here. I think this was a great time to reflect for myself, especially at the beginning of the year. So it was wonderful to have that opportunity. And thank you so much for that.